When the very first teaser for Zootopia 2 was released, everyone immediately started wondering who that hooded villain appearing at the end was supposed to be. But what if we told you that this villain was simply deleted from the movie? No promotion. Several trailers and promotional materials were released after the teaser, but if you look closely, you'll notice that the mysterious figure who appeared at the end of the first teaser was never seen again. That's extremely strange, especially for Disney, a studio known for showing off as much as possible of the main heroes and villains of their movies. It's shocking to think Disney would change its strategy specifically with Zootopia 2, a movie they clearly want to turn into a major event and a huge box office success. The thing is, Disney is the kind of studio that struggles to change its own formulas because they don't like taking unnecessary risks. So why would the marketing suddenly work differently for a movie carrying so many expectations? It makes no sense, right? But the story changes if that hooded villain, whose identity was a total mystery, was actually removed from the film entirely without anyone knowing, with that teaser appearance being nothing more than the last trace of a version of the movie we'll never get to see. So, did Disney really just delete the villain from Zootopia 2? That's what we're about to find out. Stay tuned because another awesome Cinewave is already on. The Lynxley family. Something unexpected is that the characters actually receiving most of the attention in trailers and promotional material are a family of lynxes, most of whom seem like straight up bad guys. It's pretty obvious they're going to be enemies, but the truth is that now they might actually be the real main villains instead of the mysterious hooded figure. And honestly, if that's the case, it would mean Disney's marketing is working exactly the way it should, highlighting these characters because they're the true threat behind the conspiracy Nick and Judy will have to uncover. Even more because according to what we know about the story, the Lynx family has a connection with the reptiles, and we all already know Zootopia 2 will revolve around those creatures. According to the movie's promotional children's book, one ancestor of the Lynx family even stole credit for inventing the climate walls that allow each district of Zootopia to have completely different biomes, even though the true inventor was actually Gary's great-grandmother. In other words, the lynxes are way more connected to the plot than the hooded figure ever seemed to be, and they have every possible reason to be the true enemies who want to wipe out Gary's species. Betrayal. One of the first things fans started talking about after the first teaser came out, featuring that mysterious villain, was that the movie seemed like it was repeating the plot twist from the previous film, where someone apparently harmless turns out to be the real villain the entire time. After all, if the antagonist is wearing a hood and has shadows hiding their face, it means Disney doesn't want us to figure out their identity until it's too late. But some people didn't like that, specifically because it felt like a repeat of the first film. Some say it's a lack of creativity, while others think the villain identity twist won't be surprising because, well, we already know it's coming. One of the most common theories is that the hooded villain might be Dr. Fuzzby, the cute therapist who appears during the group therapy scene. Whether she's behind the hood or not, this theory wouldn't exist under normal circumstances, but now everyone is ready to suspect anyone because of Bellwether's twist. No one would be surprised. At least until Disney decided to drop that idea and delete the mysterious villain completely in order to avoid repetition and make Zootopia 2 truly different from the first movie, which would be shocking. They may have accepted that they will never surpass Bellwether with another pretending to be good kind of villain, which could have pushed them to rebuild the new film's antagonist from scratch. If that's really what happened, Disney may have just made one of its boldest decisions ever, fixing what they saw as a mistake and rewriting a major part of the movie only a few months before release. So what would your reaction be if it turns out the hooded villain was actually erased from the movie? Comment below with the hashtag deleted so we can find your answer. Too dark. Another reason Disney may have given up on this villain is that, when we stop and think about it, he really doesn't match the tone of Zootopia. When we think about movies from this franchise, what comes to mind? Funny animals, stunning settings, amazing adventures, and things like that. Now, a hooded villain? That's not exactly the first thing that pops into the mind of a Zootopia fan. Even the villain from the previous movie, Bellwether, had a visual style that fit the universe much better, even though she was a very evil character. Sure, the hooded figure might have a look that fits more under the cloak, but we all know the hooded look is what would stick, or would have stuck, the most in our memories. Disney may even have been worried that the mysterious villain's appearance could end up scaring children. Even though Zootopia has a very rich and interesting story for adults, the main target audience is still young kids. If they got scared to the point of refusing to watch the sequel because of a frightening villain, the studio would have to deal with serious problems. Meanwhile, the Lynxes, who seem to be quietly taking over the role of main villains, are exactly the type of antagonists we expect from a Zootopia movie. Still dark, yes, but with that cartoony vibe we all love seeing in this universe. Test screenings. But there's something a little strange about this whole situation. Assuming they really did make this change, what happened that made them decide to alter something as important as the movie's main villain only after the first teaser had already been released? We think the answer is test screenings. It's very common for studios to hold test screenings, where a selected group of people watches a non-final version of a movie before everyone else and shares their opinions. When a lot of viewers don't like something, it's normal for whatever wasn't well received to be changed or even removed. But deleting a character with major importance? For that to have happened, every single person in those test screenings must have absolutely hated that character, to the point of believing he somehow ruined the movie. That's the only thing that could explain Disney deciding to delete him so long after the teaser. The executives never imagined the villain would be disliked that strongly, but the reaction practically forced Disney to erase the character to avoid having the film turn into a failure. Do you believe that's possible? And do you think that would have been a good decision? Is it really possible that rewriting the movie's script and creating a bunch of new scenes to replace the old ones, all in the last few months before release, will actually work? Rewritten script. Despite everything, Disney has already made major changes in other movies, some much more drastic than simply replacing a villain. There have been cases where films were completely rewritten and had to be remade from scratch. One of those cases was actually the first Zootopia, which originally had a much darker storyline before being rebuilt from the ground up. Disney made the decision to redo it only after several scenes had already been animated, including one that didn't even make it into the final version. The situation with Zootopia 2 is only more impressive because there's so little time left before the movie is supposed to be released. If these possible changes don't ruin the production, the artists behind the film truly deserve applause. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case with Elio, a Pixar movie that went through several rewrites and had multiple scenes cut, to the point where the second trailer was completely different from the first. This is one of the most similar situations to Zootopia 2 if the hooded villain really was deleted, and it's risky because Elio had to be delayed for a long time so the changes could be made, and even then it still ended up being a box office failure. We can't say with absolute certainty that the rewrites were to blame, but it's hard not to believe they played some part in Elio's flop. The subscribe button is flashing just for you. Click it and hit the bell right now. Marketing strategy. After we've explored all these reasons why Disney might have deleted the mysterious villain from Zootopia 2, it actually becomes much easier to believe that this really could have happened, which would make it kind of hilarious if we eventually found out that, no, the hooded figure was never deleted at all. So yeah, what if Disney actually decided to pull off a risky marketing move? As we mentioned earlier, this is not the kind of game the studio usually plays. Disney loves talking a lot about the main characters of a movie before it comes out, both the heroes and the villains, and changing that strategy in a film designed to be a big hit is, at the very least, unusual. We would normally expect this kind of experiment to be done in a smaller budget project, where failure wouldn't hurt the company as much. But if Disney would have the boldness to delete the villain from the movie just a few months before release, it's also easy to imagine them being brave enough to simply hide him from the public until the premiere. And if we stop to think about it, there are also good reasons for this marketing strategy to be used with this character specifically. As we've already said, this mysterious villain has a high chance of bringing a surprising revelation about his true identity, someone none of us would ever be able to guess. Or at least, that's what Disney wants. However, because that plot twist already happened with Bellwether in the first movie, all of us fans are already on high alert. And that's where the marketing strategy comes in. If the villain doesn't get much attention in the trailers, people will eventually forget about him and stop theorizing about who he is. Then, when the movie comes out, he'll show up and catch all of us off guard. Not to mention that even the people who do remember the villain this whole time don't actually have much material to theorize about his identity, which would be completely different if the character had appeared in every trailer. Every single scene of his would be picked apart, and we would definitely find clues about who he really is long before the movie hit theaters. But finding these clues while watching the movie is much more difficult, which means a lot of us will end up being genuinely surprised the moment the villain reveals his real face. The fun continues with just one click. There are 2 videos on the screen waiting for you. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.